Good morning and welcome to our webinar, If Digital Drives Distrust as well as Profit, does your business manage both? That is what me, Peter Almer from SAP Customer Experience, and Christer Alkesten from Esenta will talk about today. We hope you grab a cup of coffee and you will have a nice half hour in front of you here. And today's agenda will be around the different megatrends that are driving us and our customers right now. We will talk about the different capabilities that you need to work with trust and relationships and be within the regulations. So we will talk about customer consent, etc. in the next session here. We also have from Christer's side some good examples of how good looks like. So he will do a short demonstration about a company called ASOS and how they have implemented these capabilities of being personal and still being within the limits of regulations. And in the end, we will show you a little bit and do some recommendations on how you can get started. What does a good solution look like, a better and a best solution, and how long time does it take to implement it? So that is the agenda of today. And first a little bit, maybe you don't know all of us, and I know Esenta from a long time, not 20 years, but almost. They have been in this business with SAP. They are grown up in Germany and been a partner for us for since the beginning of 2000. I think I met Esenta in the early 2000s when we did SAP CRM on premise, and you can see a long agenda of history here together between our companies. And together today, we are working with all the CX portfolio applications. And today the focus will be on how Esenta can accelerate and make a fixed implementation of these new capabilities that are needed in this customer experience world of today. So the foundation of trust. We really believe that if you need trust or if you should receive trust from your customers, you really need to give them the freedom of creating their own experiences, and that is not easy today. You like to be personalized, you'd like to be also taking care of all the regulations, and there is a lot of different applications and sources of customer data today. Just wanted to highlight this picture. Normally you see SAP applications and believe maybe that you need to have the full suite from SAP to be running this extra module or these extra capabilities that we are talking about today. But that's not the case. This is a really best of breed solution that takes care of non-CRM system from SAP and non-marketing systems, and you can work with any commerce and CMS system integrated to this solution. And today we will talk about the identity, consent, profiles, and preferences as capabilities that you need to run your company in this global world. And I just wanted to give you some highlights here or inspiration of where you can find the latest trends about trust. Edelman has been, I read their reports for the last 10 years, and they give the temperature and what is happening in the world today. What is creating the experiences at customers today, and how do we as companies need to work with them to get the trust from our audiences. And if you look at these mega trends that are driving our customer relationships today, it's super important to be personalized. We are overwhelmed with all information, and we don't like companies or messaging that is not resonating to me. We need to be personalized, but that is not so easy if you like to be treating the customers on their terms. And you need to do this with transparency and control, because you will see, if you need trust, you need to be transparent, and you need to give that control back to the customer so they can control what data you have on them, or what data they like you to have on them. What is the level of personalization me as a customer like to have from your company? And we see that this exploding of customer data is just more and more, and the one that sits on that data, all companies are trying to be the owners of data. But I think just to have the data, that is not what is making a personal recommendation. It is if you can take all this data and personalize it in the way that the end customers likes to be treated. And that is what we are going to talk about today. And it's not just the mega trends that you saw in the previous slides, but it's also digital transformation, customer experience, and it's about privacy and trust and security. And it's not so easy that you just need this in your own company, in your experiences that you give from your company sites or communication. It's also today your brand, and your brand consists of a whole value chain. It's a network of companies working together. So it is also that the whole value chain is trusted relationship, and you need to have this working along the whole value chain. If not, it's broken, and if it's broken, you don't receive the trust. I just went into this site, Privacy Affairs, and had a look right now. How does this GDPR look like today? How many received fines? Because I thought I was in the in my mind, it was not that many that had been fined by EU of GDPR. But if you look at the latest statistics that I took out a screenshot of last week, it is 347 companies and organization that has been receiving a fine from EU, all from 50 million euros to the smallest fine of 90 euros. And here in Sweden, I saw a handful or almost 10 companies being fined by EU, and that was a little bit surprise for me, because I haven't seen this in the headlines, and so I was a little bit surprised myself of 347 companies. And this is not just GDPR anymore. This is coming to a broader audience as well. So if you're a company, you now need to work with the Australian, the China. China has been there for a long time, and you have the GDPR in Europe that we took care of 2 years ago, and we see now that what's coming up is also the California Consumer Privacy Act and the LGPD from Brazil coming up here. And if you look at this data, the history is that most of my customers and also the organization I've been working with have probably set up a separate instance of the customer facing applications in China and Russia, because they were really different from Europe and US. And then we treated GDPR in Europe and for all regional countries, and we probably took the same regulations and treated the rest of the world in a similar way. But now when we have the Australian regulation, the Brazil regulation, and the California regulations, we need to treat them different as well, because they are similar, but they are not alike. There are really different regulations that we need to take care of, and we need to follow them. And if we have this GDPR right now, we know how hard it was to get it working in our company, and to add 3, 4, 5, 6, and maybe consolidate China into the same solution hub here. That is it's a lot of work. And that's what we are going to talk about today. How can we make a global solutions for your company? And if we look a little bit historical here, the game has been to actually collect data, profile data, social data, location data, what you like, your behaviors, your connections, etc. All this data is super important when you do personalizations, and when you do personalizations, customers get happy. But right now, that is a little bit different. It's not just that you're going to make it super personal. It's going to be personal of the terms of the customer. And that means that we need to take all these data and combine it with the individual rights that are controlling the trust as we as customers give to organization. And that is the right to erase, the right to restrict processing within and share the data. It's data portability. It's a right to object. It's a right to decision making and profiling, be informed, and the right of access. And all this is super important in today's world with all these new regulations. And we need to give the customer freedom to choose you and your company, your brand in here. And I like to hand over to Christer to give you some insights and tips and tricks on how we can achieve this in this simple but complicated world today.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So let me bring up one example, and this is ASOS. This is ASOS in Sweden and so on. So I will not go through the website per se, etc. and so on, but you know, quite slick and nice. But if you look here, under here, if I would like to then register for information, and in the invite, we talked a little bit about some do's and don'ts. So I will give you some examples here and what we think they are doing quite well here. And we have for sure other examples. This is retail, but we have the same for B2B, for all different verticals as well and so on. So when it comes to registration here, for sure, you need to have the social and the ability to register with your social profile. The first thing you should be aware of is that people are quite reluctant today to use their social because they know their data will be shared. And some of these companies, you saw there, Google was already, you know, fine, but they don't really trust, you know, what kind of information then goes to not only ASOS in this case, but also, you know, all the other social media vendors here. But you should have that possibility. Then when it comes to, you know, register and so on, try to use the customer's desired way of identifying. If they need to have your customer number or anything that is unique for you, that's, you know, probably a recommendation try to avoid. In this case, they've done it quite easy. You have the email address here, the name and so on, and some basic data. And then you come in to select what I'm interested here, what kind of information do I want to have, where you could select, you know, all of it or just, you know, part of the information. It also comes to, you know, how to connect, you know, do I want this reach out from ASOS to be on email, or do I want it by SMS as well? What kind of information do I want to receive by email or SMS, etc., and so on. And the more granular you actually do this today, the better, because if you only have more or less, as quite common today, opt-in, it's like, yes, I want to receive information from you and you accept. But if I then feel that, yeah, but I get too many campaigns or promotions, I will opt out, then you're not allowed to contact your customer. So try to do this more granularly to really make sure that, okay, I am actually interested in, you know, products that are of interest for me. I want to have the news, etc., but I don't want to have all the promotions and sales, for example. So the more granular you build this, the better. So let's go back to the presentation again. And then, Peter, maybe you could just elaborate a little bit about the customer data and your expression that, you know, you see it as keeping it in a vault, making sure that customer really feels that we do take their customer data very seriously and we protect it, and it's our reputation that is actually on the line here to protect. So please, Peter.
Yes, thanks, Christer. I mean, the most critical information you have in your company, that is around customers and the customers' consent and their preferences. And we represent that you need to store this in a super safe location as a vault, similar to the bank where they have all the valuables in their company. And what are the capabilities you need to have in your company to be able to do this? Yes, you need to be able to talk about the different preferences as consent and capture. And you need to be able to prove and be transparent to the customer and show them the terms of service, the privacy policies, the cookie consents, etc., and also explain for them how this is going to be used in marketing and communication and personalization. And this is not something static. I mean, these preferences is, for me as a customer, something that change along the life cycle. So maybe in the beginning I'm a little bit reluctant and I share a little bit, and then I share more as I like to have it. But after the purchase, maybe I like to revoke this consent. So this is a capability that is important. And then the next thing that is tightly connected to this is version control. So if you change something in your terms of services, you need to have some help to trigger consents of renewals. Because if you go from one consent, it's not that you give consent for a lifetime. You don't give consent for something that may happen and change in the future. So here we can track the consent history and audit what type of consent you have giving the organization the permission to use. A third capability that you need to have in your solution is to enforce consent. You need to sync these preferences and consent within the downstream application of marketing, sales, and services, and even third-party application. You will see later in Christer's slides that you probably have Google Analytics and other of these third-party applications, that is services that you subscribe to maybe freely or you pay for it in a more professional version. This needs to be treated as well within the limit of customer data, and you need to have this self-service and preference senses. So me as a consumer, I can choose what profiles and identities I use to log in with. I like to use this self-service to withdraw the consent. We as companies, we don't have the resources or time to actually manage all the questions and that a customer might have. So they can actually here withdraw their consent, change their consent, download their user data to in the transparency, just feel confident that they give trust to the right organization. And when you have all these capabilities, then you can be in a really efficient organization. Then it doesn't really matter if the customers are in Europe, China, Russia, US, Brazil, Africa, etc. Then we can treat them with the terms and conditions that that region is forcing us to do. Okay. And here we have the profile. Profile is the flexible account structures. Here in the profile, we will be able to take all the first party social and federation data and maintain it and treat it in a good way. We can use this data to actually enhance the profile as we go along. Maybe you saw Chris's example. Maybe we just start with email in the beginning, and maybe that email is maybe not with my true first name and last name. We see today that Apple is adding anonymous services, so you can get emails that are just for one-time purposes. But as we go along, we maybe add our first name, our last name. I don't know, gender, maybe that is not important anymore, location data, what I like, etc. So here in this profile, you see that regardless if we are a B2B or B2C company, there is a lot of data that we can build up this profile around.
Yeah, and if you have look upon this slide, initially it could look like a little bit okay, a lot of companies name here, but just to illustrate that, for us to be able to handle, and build up the correct customer data and the customer profile, what kind of information do we actually want and need to save about our customers, and then where to consume it. So for sure, this solution is integrated and supporting all the SAP CX, but also the experience manager with Qualtrics. But regardless of solution, we then make sure that all the different applications, the consumer information is correctly distributed with the right consent to all different applications, from your email marketing to the recommendation, the personalization, and so on. But also, of course, when we select and gather this data from, for example, our analytic tools and so on.
Yeah. And also, Chris, I maybe add here, I mean, when I show this to my customers, say this is pre-integrated in the solution, all these solutions, and not just these solution, it's even more. And you can probably talk a lot of that, Chris. But you see here that most of you recognize that, yeah, we do some Google Analytics. Some of us combine that with Core Metrics or Adobe Analytics. We have maybe MailChimp in some areas where we do email, newsletter, send-outs, etc. But it's also experienced that in many global companies there the marketing units have separate marketing organizations that are running maybe their own local commerce solution in one part of the world and one CMS solution in a country or a region, etc. And it's maybe not just one Magento and one WordPress or one hybrid site. It could be a lot of them. So what we are taking care of is actually maintaining all these integration in a point and click simple way.
So let's then go into, now we talked a little bit about, what's driving this, the trends, the different regulations throughout the global perspective, to be able to build up the correct customer profile, to collect the data in a controlled way and make sure that this can be then consumed in all the different applications and services. So then how to do this? So we talk about, 3 different package. We call them in this case here good, better, and best. I will elaborate a little bit further on here throughout the presentation what they are all about. All of them are packaged, fixed services. This is something that is based upon our best practices, our conducted work throughout the world, both in regards to B2C and B2B. And afterwards, if you're interested, I can provide you with some examples, customer examples in different verticals and so on. So the first package is really about setting up for one digital channel here to make sure that you capture the correct consent from the customers to be compliant. This is not the proof of concept. It's stored in the customer data cloud. It's setting the foundation for it, but it's a starting point, and it's a little bit limited when it comes to the integration. The second package, the better approach here, is for sure then to build up a little bit more the customer data, the data model behind this, and to start look into the integration. And then the best approach, that's really the fully fledged implementation where this is supported throughout the whole landscape within your organization here. So if we look upon here, the good, as I said, it's creating the basis for the consent, the profile. Then we are talking about, the basic data capture like the name, emails, mobile phone, etc. and so on. But we don't do any adoption of the data model. We just use the standard out-of-the-box functionality within Customer Data Cloud here. And as I said, there is only one integration with the front-end app in this scenario. It is a very structured approach. If you look upon it from a timeline perspective, we talk about 5 weeks here. We do this with a design week, a build week that is quite compressed of two weeks, and then we have the go live and 1 week that we just make sure that everything is captured correctly and that you then can continue working with your CDC instance. The more sophisticated, the better approach. Then we are also adding, the whole identity management here. And then we start to look upon the self-service. What kind of information do we want our customers to be able to actually, enter and to change that throughout the life cycle and so on. One good example here could be, for example, Ferrari. They have their brand is quite well known. For sure, you could be interested in Formula One. You could be interested in buying Ferrari cars if you have that interest and the ability to do so. but also they have a lot of clauses, where design elements, etc., and so on. So that could be an example that you could check out afterwards as well, where they have done it quite nicely with that broad brand that you could select what you're interested in and so on, and also then build up the consent and the profile here. In the better approach, we're also moving into a more built-up integration, where we create some data flows to other systems and so on, still based upon the standard data model and the integration points. This is a little bit more work. We are adding 2 more build weeks, as you can see. So we are then talking about 7 weeks. As you can see here, we are then also talking about a more fully fledged project team, where we actually work with people more full-time, doing some development in this scope. Then if you look upon the best approach, the fully fledged, then we are really working into the fully suite here, with integration, with changing and building up the correct data model, as you saw earlier in the customer profile. What kind of data do we want to have and capture and make that unique for your? There is a lot of these capabilities out of the box, but for sure this has to be adopted and really relevant for your business as well. Then we are talking about a little bit of a different approach here. Then we are talking about 8 to 12 weeks. The differences between the 8 and 12 is actually if you as a customer wants to do some of the development on your own, but we can take it from A to Z, and then it's around 12 weeks. But also, if you would like to develop some of these things yourself, we will guide you through this and enable you to start, adopt, and work with the solution. So these are the packages. This is a high level of summary where you can see the different good, better, and best approach. So for sure, on the green side, on the best approach, there is much more sophisticated and more tick box. But also, the good, the starting point, it is a full consent solution, ensuring compliance for the customer data here. Okay, Peter, that was a little bit about how to do this.
Yeah. And I think also time flying away here, and I would like also to pick up a couple of questions here, and I have one here that I can maybe start myself, and then you can maybe add on, Krista, to see what you view on it. But proof of concept. Can you do that as well? And I would say that is what Krista described as the good approach. That is basically the proof of concept. You need to have it, from my point of view, at least integrated in your environment, and you need to have it up and running. So if you like to do a proof of concept of the solution itself, I suggest that with the guidance of Krista and his expert, you can go through and look at a site like ASOS that Krista showed and see what are the capabilities and how are they added when you join this customer. Otherwise, I would say the good approach is a kind of proof of concept in my view. What do you say, Krista?
Yeah, it's but it's real. It is the solution and so on. But still, when we talk about a 5 weeks approach, it's still uh, based upon best practices. We have the templates, etc., and so on. So uh, instead of just having it as a proof of concept, and if you like it, you then need to start all over again. That's not the case. You could actually then continue from the good approach to move into a more fully fledged, but you have already the basis of it. That's why I wouldn't say that it's a proof of concept. It's actually real, and it will be the first release. It's not release 0.5, it's release 0.1 in this case for you.
And these projects are really small. I mean, most proof of concept that we have seen during the years are more than 5 weeks, and here you get a fully fledged live system up and running with the scope that you can grow on. And another question is, Christer, even if we go for the good, better approach, do we need to work or hand over to Esenta that everything for the future integrations needs to be managed by you, or is that just a part of the best approach?
No, as I said, you can, even from the good approach, continue, and you can grow you can build your own integrations. There are a lot of standard integrations also, if you look upon into, for sure, the CX portfolio, but to a lot of others. So the whole purpose here is that our customers continue, they take ownership of the application, because this will change, and you might want to add different consent. You want to change the customer profiling, the data you are collecting, etc., from your customers. And also in some cases, maybe you actually decide we don't need to collect these kind of data anymore, because that's also part of the whole regulation here, is that is this information really something that is required for us to support our customers in a good way. You had a good example there, for example, with gender. It is historical that customer we all store this, but actually more and more this becomes an obsolete kind of information and data point, because more and more doesn't want to define themselves just over the gender and so on. And what does it really mean? I can still be interested in women clothes because I want to buy it for my daughters or for my wife, even if I'm man. So it's hard to determine from that perspective. So definitely this is a changing and a moving target, but the application per se, the solution, is really easy to adopt and to change over the time. And the whole purpose is this is something that our customers really work with moving forward as well. A long answer, but
yeah, but a good one. Just a last question here to the respect of the time here, and I think I can take it. It's more product question. Even if you go for the good solution, is that going to work with all the different regulations around the world? And the simple answer is yes. We provide separate instances of the solution in Russia and China if you have businesses there. So we follow the local regulation and store the data within the borders of that country if that is a part of the regulation. So this is a way for you to simplify your capabilities and make them global and treat customers on a. It's very hard on the global commerce side to treat them uniquely if you don't have a global solution for it. So the simple answer is yes. And with this, I think me and Christer say thanks for attending, and thanks for being interactive. So freedom starts now. And do you have some last words, Christer?
Thank you very much for inviting us here. And if there are any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me and Peter, and we will happily provide you with, customer references, examples, more details, description of the different good, better, and best approach.
Thank you very much, and have a really nice day.
Thank you. Bye.